Alright guys, and we're back. Okay, so now for our next action here, what are we going to do, right? You know, to answer that question, let's go back to our app index.js. See, here we are. So okay, we've converted the to-do list to a container component, right? So let's keep going with that and do the same to the input bar this time, right? Excellent. So here's the input bar. Let's do input bar then. Sweet. Okay, we're going to go through the same series of steps, right? And yeah, let's go with it. So for the input bar, we need um, we need to do it, man. So yeah, let's do it. So we have a add to do, right? So let's open input bar here. We have the input bar. It takes this add to do as a prop, right? And it will call that with with a to do, right? Um, you know, that's about it. That's all we need to know. So let's create a container component for that. Source components containers actually. Source container is a input bar. .js. Nice. Okay. We're going to start by importing the Redux, the connect from React to Redux, right? And also we're going to import the input bar from the components from components input bar. Right, so this is it. So for the input bar, if you guys can see here, in terms of props, let's look at props, right? So the only prop that it gets is the add to do, right? The add to do. So, but the add to do is like a callback method, right? It's a callback. So essentially, what we're going to do here is we're not going to need the map state to props, right? Because it doesn't actually require any state from the Redux store to be rendered, right? Like rendering it is easy. It just needs this callback for when you actually try to submit a to do, right? So for that reason, we're not going to have map state to props. We're going to have map dispatch the props, right? And it's super interesting because map dispatch to props is going to be super simple for this guy, really. All it's going to have, the callback's called add to do, and I'm going to put something here that's going to be a function that's going to be called when the user does a add to do, right? So this is going to be the callback that I'm going to call when for the add to do, right? This is going to be passed to the input bar as the add to do callback, right? So when we're doing a connect and we don't have map state to props, we pass null as the first argument, and then we give map dispatch to props as the second argument. And okay, what's this XXX here, right? So typically what we want you to pass here is a action creator for this action of adding the to do, right? So let's import add to do from actions to do's, right? And you know, and now we're going to replace the input bar here with the one from the containers, and now we can remove the dummy add to do here, right? And obviously it explodes because you know XXX is not defined. What we want to do here is this, right? But as I mentioned to you guys, in ES6 we can write it as just this. You know, we want to be really idiomatic. And now it explodes for a totally different reason, which is actions to do's does not contain an export called add to do, which is perfectly fine. We haven't defined an action creator for add to do. So let's do actions to do's, and we're going to create exactly that. Add to do, and okay, that's cool. Typically the only input from the user that we're going to get when we're adding a to do really is the to do's description, right? So let's get a description here as the only argument for this action creator, right? And the type is going to be add to do, and the payload is going to be API call to add to do. And here, add to do, let's assume that we're passing, essentially we're passing like a to do object. So we're just going to say this. If you guys remember from when we created our server, the only required field of a to do is a description. So we can just pass the description, right? And we can be sure that it's going to get the completed field set to false by default, right? So we're going to import add to do's as well from the constants, right? Add to do, and we can fix that by effectively adding it here. Okay, now we need to add the API for add to do, right? And that's not super difficult. Let's open up the API here, right? Export const add to do. It's going to take a to do, and return axios.post. Now we're doing a post to API to do's again. Same URL, and we're going to give it to do. Super straightforward. We want to do this normalization kind of thing here at the end, and now boom, whatever, right? Like it seems like we added, like it looks kind of good, man. So let's try this out and see what happens, right? We're going to go here to our application. Amazing, right? So we're going to add a to do and say, let's say we're going to test add to do, right? And as we submit, if we look here in our network thing, right, I actually can see nothing because I should have started it previously. But you see here, we did go through an add to do pending and add to do fulfilled, and if you look at the action, like, you actually have a payload here for the object that got created, right? So if we actually refresh the app, you're going to see it here, which is awesome, right? So it is actually, you know, it is actually creating the it's actually sending the request, but the fact is there is no reducer. There is no reducer to handle the add to do action type. So we should have such a reducer, and what it should do, it should update the state, to add that to do that we just that the server just confirmed that has been added. We should just add it to our little list here, right? So implement reducer for add to do action type, right? You guys can see the post here. That's what I was going to show you guys, right? So params, yeah, here it is, the JSON and the response, that it was there, and if we refresh, we see it's there, right? Super cool. So let's go to the reducers to do's, right? So we want to do something like this. We want to have an add to do here, and we're going to import that here. Let's do it like this and this. Whoops. And like this, it looks a little bit better. Awesome, but now it's going to explode because I haven't finished doing what I needed here, right? So, okay, now here we're going to really need the state and the action, right? And what we're going to do here really is we are going to add this to do there, right? We're going to put it there. So we're going to use the push method of the list, of the immutable list, right? To put it into the state, right? So what we want to do here, we want to do a state.push, and we want to say immutable from JS of action.payload, right? That's cool. So let's give it a go. Test add to do reducer. Boom! Works, guys. It works. The sweet taste of success, guys. That's what I'm saying, guys. That's what I'm saying. Very cool, very, 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 very cool, actually. So that was pretty easy, man. And you know what? It seems like we've finished the implementation of our little input bar container, right? So let's give ourselves a pat in the back first for obvious reasons, right? And let's commit all of this, So we're going to say, oops, input bar container plus add to do. That is very cool, guys. That is very, very cool. So yeah, awesome. So obviously we shouldn't stop at this, right? I mean, we need to keep going, man. We need to keep going. Awesome. So our next step is going to be this, right? As you guys can see, you know, I can't toggle to do yet, right? And the reason why is quite obvious, is because, you know, we don't have like an action for, you know, toggling the to do and all the good stuff. So we should just look into that, right? So let me close my editor. Basically, okay. So if we're going to the to-do list, I want this one actually. Okay, so if we go into the to-do list, you see the to-do component here, right? And it has a method. It has this prop called toggle to-do that takes a callback that will perform, you know, the toggling of said to-do, right? Super cool. So yeah, let's do it, guys. You know, let's implement this thing, right? So the first things first, right? What we need to do first is we need to create a to-do container component, right? We need to create a containers to-do, right? So let's do that. Source containers to-do.js, right? And we start same way, port connect from React Redux, and we import to do from components to do, right? That's cool. We already know what's going to happen here, right, guys? I mean, it's no secret. So we're going to need to create an action creator for this guy, you know, and let's call it toggle to do from actions to do's. And you guys already know what to do, right? I mean, map dispatch to props, right? And we want to use this for callbacks. That's why we're going to connect and to do. Right? So now what we need to do is we need to replace this guy. So containers to do, and we no longer need to give it this dummy to do thing. So okay, first things first, right? It explodes because we don't have an action toggle to do. Well, let's fix that, right? Okay, so toggle to do, right? Yeah, you know, yeah, exactly. So how are we going to define this action, right? I mean, we're going to take the to do, right? Let's take the whole thing, and then we're going to say, okay, we're going to say the type is toggle to do, and the payload. Now the payload is interesting, right? Like the payload, it needs to be the new to do, right? So that to do modified to have a toggled completed field, right? So how do we do that, right? So what we're going to do here is we need some variables to essentially change our state, right? So let's convert this to a block instead of a value, right? And now we're going to say something like const new completed equals to do get completed. Oh, what am I doing? Completed, right? So we're going to get the completed field. We'll say not, right? we say not because we want the inverse of it. And then we're going to create a new to do, right? Which is the to do, but we're going to set completed to new completed, right? Now the payload is going to be the new to do. Or is it? Remember, guys, we actually need to persist this stuff, right? So what we really need to do here is we need to call an API here, right? That will essentially set this to do. So we need to say API dot set to do, and we're going to give it the new to do. We need to convert it to JavaScript because we're a immutable.js object. Okay. Import toggle to do. Now it's going to explode because that doesn't exist. Well, that was fixed. Now it's going to explode because the API doesn't exist. Let's fix that too. Okay, set to do. It takes a to do. You know, it's the same Axios stuff, right? We're going to say Axios dot we want to do a put, right? But now our URL is a little bit different, right? Because we want to say API to do's, but you know, let's take a look at our API Explorer, right? So we want to do something like this. We want to use this guy where we want to replace attributes for a model instance, right? So for a single to do, and the ID is passed through the endpoint URL. So we want to say something here like to do.id, right? And now we want to give it the to do, and the rest, you know, same old, right? We want to just retrieve the data from the return payload, right? So nothing super fancy, right? It's really straightforward, really straightforward stuff. Now things compile successfully. Now let's give this a try in our application itself, right? So let's see. You know, we created the get to do's API method, right? So let's do that. Okay, I clicked it. You know, nothing happened. Huh? Yeah, if you guys remember, you know, it's the same thing, right? Let's do it again. You see, the put is actually going out and it's working. It's working, guys. You know, it's effectively working, but you know, it's not being reflected in the application state because there is no reducer for the toggle to do, right? So here it is, guys. You see, if I refresh it again, it's gonna come back from the server, but there is no reducer for toggle to do. So let's fix that. So let's go here. We're going to create a reducer, you know, and this reducer is going to be a little bit more involved, right? It's going to say toggle to do and fulfilled. And okay, now we want both, right? We want both because we're modifying stuff, right? We're modifying stuff, and you know, it's never pretty to do that. So anyway, so really what we need to do here, we need to do state.map of to do, right? I'm like, okay, let's see here, right? I mean, if if the ID of this to do is the same of the of the payload, right? So we're going to we're essentially going to replace the to do with whatever's coming from the set to do API, right? But otherwise, man, you know, we just return to do, right? Oops, actually you can't do that. Okay. And that's it. You know, nothing a lot more interesting than that. So the toggling works now, guys, you know, and yeah, we have to go back and give ourselves a little pat on the back for doing all this stuff, right? So we actually implemented toggle to do. Nice. So let's give ourselves a little pat on the back for that, and let's commit all those files. Amazing. To do container and toggle to do. Very nice, guys. Very nice. You see, like once you get started with creating the container components, you know, it's a very streamlined process. You know, you keep going until you effectively have your entire application implemented for you, right? Like, it's amazing. You know, it's a great process. All right, guys. You know, why stop now, right? We're being so successful, so let's do this, right? Now, okay, I can add to dos, I can toggle them, but one thing that I cannot do yet is to change my visibility filter here, right? I can't, you know, that doesn't work yet, right? So let's make it work, right? So let's get started. Go to our app. You see, it's this thing called the visibility filter, right? It has two props, filter and on filter change. You know, straightforward as hell. Ooh, which is awesome. Okay, so let's do it, man. You know, let's create visibility filter.js, you know, and it's the same old, man. We're going to import connect. Right? That's it. Right. Okay. Here's the visibility filter, right? Like, cool. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, you guys see it has two props, right? Filter and on filter change. Yeah, you see, like the filter, we actually want the filter to come from Redux, right? So this is a prop that's going to come from state. So we need a map state to props. Jesus, it's so hard to write this, man. Holy crap. Okay. So it's coming from state, right? Yeah, so map state to props, you know, it's coming. it's coming from here, and you know, it's basically an object, right? We're going to say that filter comes from a prop it comes from a value in the Redux store that's called a visibility filter, like this. Okay. And as you guys see, what this means is effectively is that we are going to create a reducer for the visibility filter, right? We're going to create a reducer for this stuff that's going to be called visibility filter and all that good stuff. Okay, sweet. So, but also it takes a onFilter change, right? And you know, that needs to dispatch an action to our store to change the filter, right? So it needs a map dispatch to props as well. And that we can say on filter change here. This will take the set visibility filter, something we're going to call a set visibility filter, right? We're going to call it that, which is an action creator, right? It's an action creator. Map state to props, map dispatch to props, awesome. Yeah, and we're going to go here and effectively delete these. And now it's going to explode because none of those things are defined, right? But that's fine because we're going to create them. Yay! Okay. So we need to import that action creator, right? So we're going to import visibility, set visibility filter from actions visibility filter. That doesn't exist. So what we're going to do is something really cool. Oh yeah, so this is supposed to be this, right? Like, sorry guys. So okay, but you know, the more idiomatic way to do this is to actually do something like this, right? Yeah, it is a more idiomatic thing. Okay, now let's create this module, right? Visibility filter.js. Yeah, and okay, so essentially we're going to import set visibility filter from, we need to create a constants file for that as well. So so we're going to say visibility filter action types, and okay, it's action types. You know, let's do a multi-line version to make it a little bit better, right? And what we want to do here is we want to say something like, okay, set visibility filter, it's going to take a filter, right? And it all needs to do is just dispatch. Just dispatch an action object, right? So it's super straightforward. The type is going to be set visibility filter, and the payload is going to be just filter, right? That's all it is, guys. That's all it is. All it is. But I mean, now now things start to get a little bit iffy, right? Because like, you guys are going to see what I mean. You guys are going to see what I mean, right? Okay. So we don't need this anymore. Compiled successfully. Let's look, right? So if I click this guy, oops, okay, the thing closed, but you guys can see I had a set visibility filter here, and the action, set it to all. So I click again, let's go there. The action sets it to active, and if I go here, click again, it will go there, it will be there, and it will be set to complete it, right? I mean, cool, awesome. But how do you actually filter this, right? I mean, how do you actually filter this stuff, right? And the how is, let me put it like this, right? It is quite interesting. It's quite interesting how we're going to do this, right? So, okay, that's cool. What we're going to do right now is we're going to, well, let me think about this, right? Let me think about this. So first things first, right? We need this. If you guys look here, if you guys actually go in here and look, let's look at this last guy. So if you look at the state, you don't see the visibility filter here, right? So we need to implement that reducer. So let's say, oops, source reduce, edit source reducers. We're going to call it visibility filter.js. And this is going to be a really straightforward reducer. So all you need to do is export default right visibility filter reducer, and the visibility filter reducer is going to be something that takes the state, it starts at all, right, and then action, and yeah, we're going to switch on the action type, same old stuff, right? And in case it's set visibility filter, let's import that here. Well, okay, in this case, well, in the default, we just return state, right? But in this case, we're going to return action of payload, right? It's really straightforward, guys. I mean, come on. Okay, let's refresh our app. It sort of doesn't really. Whoa, I mean, yeah, it won't work. And the reason for that is simple. We need to add this guy to the index reducer, right? So and now it explodes because I forgot to import all here. So import all from now visibility filter types, and now it should work, right? Okay, now it looks like it's working, right? So because we see we have the all visibility filter set here, right? So yeah, we click here, click here, click here. I mean, you know, it works, right? But eh, am I right, guys? Am I right? Okay, that's cool. That's super cool, you know. And you see the, you know, that's how it is, right? That's how it is. So I mean, how are we going to make the filtering work now, right? I mean, the persistence is there, right? It persists the filter value, but how are we going to actually do the filtering, right? So the way we're going to do that is by actually we're going to introduce a new little concept here, right? Which is called a selector, right? So let's close my things here. Let's look at the to-do list container here, right? So you see, like, map state to props, like it just passes along the to-dos to the component, right? It's pretty straightforward, right? It's pretty straightforward, right? But really, what I wanted to say here is not this. I wanted to say something that's derived from the full list of to-dos and whatever visibility filter I have there, right? So for this, there's this concept called selectors, right? And to implement selectors, we are going to use this helper library that's called reselect. So yarn add reselect, which is a really cool thing, right? So let's create one of those selectors. So first things first, we're going to want to have a directory here called selectors, right? So let's create that. So selectors, and this selector is going to be called, I don't know, I'm thinking, I think I'm just going to call to-dos, right? To-dos. You know, nothing crazy, right? So we're going to import create selector, whoa, from reselect. And we're going to want to import the all from the constants. Awesome. You know, and yeah. Okay, so we're going to start by creating a function that returns the visibility filter from the whole from the whole state, right? So we can write it like this, you know. Right, like we can write it like this, and also we want to have a function that returns the to-dos from the state, right? So something like this. And now we're going to write our selector, right? We're going to call it set get visible to-dos, and we're going to create a selector, right? So the first argument of create selector is going to be this array with pure functions that return whatever we're selecting from the entire state of the store, right? So we're going to pass on like get visibility filter and get to do's here, and that's our first argument. So now it's going to call this function here and pass whatever is returned by those two. And this function here is going to be the one that does our selecting, right? So you want to act differently depending on the visibility filter, right? And you know, in case we're returning only the active ones, we want to return to do's the filter. And we want to filter to-dos where we want to return to-dos where completed is false, right? That's what I mean. And when in the completed case, we want to return those where it's true, right? So I just remove that. In the default case, we just return all the to-dos. And therefore, we actually don't need the all here, right? And yeah, guys, I think we have our selector here. So with that, we can actually go back here and import get visible to-dos from selectors to-dos. And now what we can do is this, like get visible to-dos state. So it compiles, awesome. And now when we click here, you know, it switches. Like it actually does the filtering, which is super impressive, right? Like it's really cool. So hooray, we managed to get some filtering done here, right? So our visibility filter is working great, right? It's working really well. So let's save this, you guys. You know, let's commit this. And let's say get visible to-dos selector, right? Yeah, that's really awesome. Okay, but now what I really want to happen here, right? So let's say when we do this, we're only toggling, you know, between the list that's like in memory for the app But if someone actually added a to do here, right? Let's say you know, I don't know, tests multiple users, right? So I added a to do here. If I click here, it's not going to show as active because I'm actually not going to the server to fetch the to dos again, right? So what if I wanted to do that, right? What if I actually wanted to, when we switch the visibility filter, we actually go and fetch the to dos again, right? So the way we can implement that is by using that thunk kind of stuff, you know, like the thunk middleware, and it's actually very straightforward to do. So we're going to jump into it right now. So we go here to the action creator for the visibility filter, right? And instead of it being a function that gets filtered and returns, returns that, what we're going to do is we are going to return a function that returns a function that gets this dispatch function as an argument, right? And what it's going to return is essentially, we're going to say here, so the first thing this function is going to do, right? It's going to call it's going to call dispatch, and it's going to dispatch get to dos with a proper filter, right? It's going to dispatch. It's going to call the server, and it's going to give the server a filter, a visibility filter, and the API is supposed to return only the to dos that match that visibility filter, right? And then after that dispatch, we can do a dot then, because that the action returns a what is it called, a promise, right? And then we can finally dispatch our set visibility filter action, right? So it's going to look like this. Import from unexpected there's one more. Compiled successfully. So now it's going to fetch, right? But it's not doing the fetch like I wanted it to do, right? Because essentially I say here really test multiple users, and if I click on active, you see it shows up, right? So it's working in a way, but it's always retrieving all the to-dos every time I actually change here. I wanted it to retrieve only the to-dos that match that visibility filter, right? Because there can be so many of them, right? And let's do the selection on the server. So to achieve that, we need to modify our get to dos to receive a filter right? And then when it calls the API, right, it will going to pass that filter along. You know. Now, how are we going to implement this here, right? So this is going to be a little complicated, right? Essentially, we get this filter here, and I mean, what are we going to do, right? So okay, so what we want to do is something like this, right? We want to have a visibility query here. So for all, right? Because here's the deal. If we go here, look at the API Explorer. Let's see, get to dos. So it has a filter parameter, right? Which is a filter defining fields where whatnot, and we want to pass here something like let's say, let's try this, right? We want to do, whoa, hold up, we want to do something like this, right, where completed is true, right? So if we try this out, it returns only to dos where completed is true, where if I actually go here and change it to false, try it out, and yeah, you see, so that's pretty cool. So what we want to do here is we want to, whoa, hold on, okay, so we want to, here in the URL, right, we want to have something that's like the visibility query here for a certain filter, right? So for all, we're done, like it's actually implemented already. Let's import the all. Let's import the visibility filter types. All active completed. Okay, so here I want something that's, you know, that will basically give me what I want, right? So I want to, I'm going to build those strings programmatically, like so. So this is going to be the string question mark filter equals plus okay. So let's say here constant, the query is this, right? It is where completed, right? This is the query, and let's say the stringify query is encode URI component JSON.stringify query. And so return question mark filter equals str query, right? Like the stringified query, you know, and call it a day. And now we can call that function here to basically create the query strings for us programmatically, right? And it seems like it didn't work for some reason. It explodes for some really bizarre issue here, which I don't quite understand. Oh, I see. This is a server error. This is a server error. And it's giving it like an undefined. So what we need to do here is we need to say that the default value for the filter is all. And if we go back here to our application, we reload it. That's great. Let's look at the network here. So click active. To-dos filter work completed is false. You look at the response and you see it's only the payload is only those 3 that are not completed, right? And so on and so forth. So everything works. And if I'm here on active and it works, and if I click here it disappears, right? Because it moves to completed. Now let's say test adding new to do filter is completed. It disappears because it doesn't belong here, right? So yeah, that's pretty awesome. And with that being said, we can actually confirm that we tested those 2 guys here, and we're good to go, man. We're good to go. So yeah, it seems like we have the whole doing a server-side filtering. We have that down, man. So let's commit this and keep going. So we implemented a get to dos with filter, which is super nice, man. I mean, let's take a step back now and look at our application. We're basically done. We're just missing those 2 pesky requirements that we got from that we got at the end of the project, right? Yeah, we got the final hour, which is this this spinner here for when we are loading for our when we have loading requests, and also this error banner, right? So let's do it, man. Let's make those 2 work, and we should be done with that, right? So okay, so both those are here in the title bar. See, the error banner and the spinner. Let's start with the spinner. So for the spinner, we are going to want to create a container component, right? So containers, and we're going to call spinner.js. Okay, we have it here. Okay, awesome. Let's take a look at at the spinner component, right? So it takes a loading prop, a prop that says loading basically, right? And it just reacts to that, right? So it's super simple. We should do that with map state to props. You know, loading and yeah, man. You know, let's say that the state is called loading, right? And that's it, man. That's it. And what it's going to return is loading to us. You know. There we go. So now what we have to add, we are actually missing. We actually need to resolve the rest of the stuff via the reducer, right? Via a reducer. So what we're going to do here is we're going to remove this and, you know, do it like this. You know, the sprinter disappears because there is no loading in the state, right? So now what we need to do is we need to add a loading reducer, right? So in order to populate the state with, right? So we're going to call this reducer loading.js, and let's do it, man. Loading reducer, right? It calls loading reducer. And yeah, it takes a state which, you know, so doing a loading reducer here, right, it's going to be a little tricky, right? Because as you guys have seen, so Redux promise middleware, what it does is it will dispatch an action saying whatever the type of reaction is with a underscore pending at the end. So when we get the pending, we should start the spinner, right? We should start the spinner. And when we get the fulfilled or the rejected, right, we should stop the spinner. But here's the thing, right? Let's say an action A gets pended. Okay, so now we start spinning, right? And now, so let's say we move the loading state from false to true. So we're loading, right? Now another action comes in and it gets pinned, right? So that will move it to true, right? Now if action A is fulfilled before action B is fulfilled, the fulfillment of action A is actually going to set the loading state back to false, and that does not reflect reality because B hasn't returned yet, right? So to fix that, we actually make the loading state be an integer. We start at 0, and when we get pending states, we actually increment the loading state, right, by 1. And when we get fulfillment or rejection states, we actually decrement the loading state by 1. So it's kind of like matching parens. So let's implement that. So our state is going to start at 0, and we get an action here, right? And okay, so this is going to be a little different from the switch statements that we typically do, right? So we want to do something like this, right? If we have something like this, right? Let's say pending if our action type ends with pending, we want to return state plus 1. Else, if it ends with either fulfilled or rejected, then we return state minus 1, right? Else, just return state, man, because this is not a asynchronous action. Super cool, dude. Super cool. Let's export this guy. Loading. And let's see what happens. See, the spinner flashed for a tiny fraction of a second there, right? Which is super cool. So one thing that we can do, let's give this a try. We can use this MITM proxy, right? And we want to intercept anything that has a URL of that matches actually /API. You know, let's do something that's a post, and let's just match posts actually, right? And let's modify our preferences here to use the proxy. Now I say test spinner here. When I hit enter, the post request is going to be intercepted and held by MITM proxy. So the spinner is going to keep spinning forever, like this. Now if we go here and we accept it, now the spinner, you know, is accepted, and then it goes away, right? So super cool. It means our spinner is working great. So awesome. So this means we can give ourselves a little pat in the back and, you know, cheer on the fact that our spinner is working fine, man. Okay. So the next thing from our title bar that requires implementing, and this is the final thing that we're going to do for our application, and then we're going to declare it complete. This is error banner, right? Let's get to it. I mean, what else can I say, man? So let's say I'm going to work on start the container component, right? Source containers, it's going to say error banner.js. Let's take a look at error banner. So error banner is one of those guys who are going to need both functions here, right? So both map state to props, where it's going to take an error, you know, and it's going to map it to like this. And well, you know, and it's going to get a map dispatch to props. It's going to take something like a clear error. Very cool. Now clear error is an action creator. It doesn't exist yet, right? So let's implement that action creator. Let's say import clear error from actions error. So const clear error, right? And what it is this super simple function that will type is clear error. The action type is clear error, right? And that's it, man, because I mean the type communicates all that needs to be communicated, basically, right? So okay, that's cool. You know, let's go here and do this, and it's going to explode, right? And the reason why it's going to explode is because we don't have that constant defined. So constant error action types okay. Okay, now it works. Excellent. Okay, now we have the action creator. Now let's work on the reducer. The error reducer, right? So let's start with an empty string for the error and an action, right? So if so we're going to do that same kind of matching, you know. If we have a rejected action type, we should effectively set the error to the message of the payload, right? So action.payload.message, right? And if for clear error they'll return empty string. Now let's add it to the root reducer. Export default, imported error was not found in error. Oh yeah, I forgot that. Do an export default on the error reducer. You know, and now the error banner disappears, right? So I should remove the dummy props. Yeah, and now we don't have an error banner, right? Test error banner. So I hit here, it's going to get blocked here by the MITM thing. I can go here, I'm going to add it, I'm going to send it a code 500, right? And if I move on with it, boom, there we go. The message is request failed with status code 500, right? Now if I click here, it goes away, thus showing us that everything is working great. You know, we're working amazing. So that's it. You know, it seems like our test is essentially over, right? So if we go to our preferences here, proxy, and we use system proxy settings, you know, refresh our app, right? We have tested the error banner and it worked great. Another way we can test the error banner is we go here to the network. I was wondering if I could actually set it offline, you know, here in the network. But no, it seems to be missing that option from the Chrome DevTools. Okay. Yeah, another option I was going to suggest is actually setting the app offline and then, you know, performing a network, something that would call an API here and just see that go boom, right? But yeah, man, it seems like we're done with the error banner, right? So let's give ourselves a little pat in the back for completing what's essentially the final task for, you know, in this quest for completing our application. Right, so that's it. You know, things look pretty good, right? Like it seems our app was working great, man, you know. So yeah, we finished. We're done. We are done. I'm just going through the commits here real quick to see if we may actually have missed stuff, but it looks like we're good, man. You know, maybe we may have missed some places here and there where we may have wanted to tweak things a little bit better, you know, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Plus, let's be honest, I had some pretty awesome notes to guide me through this whole thing, just so I wouldn't get lost while explaining all this stuff to you guys, right? So pretty awesome. All right, well, what else can I say, right? That's it for our session developing live coding a full React and Redux application, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the ride, and yeah, see you next time when I'm going to put out like another tutorial for God knows what I'm going to come up with next, right? See you later, guys. Thank you so much for your attention. Until next time.